we're back in the kitchen, back this week to Rosie's Preserving School. It's Saturday morning and I've got to be ahead of the game now. I've had 4 weeks off, so we're back on Wednesday with the first of the spring, the spring series. So problem is Trev hasn't got any cake, so I need a cake for the week. So I'm going to make a big old. It's going to be a sponge cake, but it's not going to be sliced through the middle with icing in the middle. I'm going to make it in my big bundt tin and then ice it. So I thought I'd show you because I haven't got many eggs. So I'm going to use the water glassed eggs that I did last year, which we've already looked at in one of the workshops and sort of tested it. I fried one and I ate it and it was all fine. But I haven't made any cakes with it. So this is flying blind. I haven't practiced. I haven't got one. I'm going to show you if it doesn't work. So in my big jar here, those of you that were kind of with me last year will recognise this. I've got the water glassed eggs. So they're just preserved in calcium hydroxide and water. So I'm going to use 6 eggs, which sounds a lot, but it's a big well, it's not a tin, it's silicone, but anyway, I've got a foolproof recipe for you, which was given to me by my WI friend Val, and she only told me this about 10 years ago, and it's changed my life, I can say. So basically, you weigh your eggs, and then everything else goes in at the same weight. So if I want to make a big 6 egg sponge, I can, but you could reduce it down to a 3 egg sponge or a 4, whatever you wanted to do, whatever you're going to make. But I'm going to use 6. So I'm going to get fish 6 eggs out of here and just sort of dry them off a bit, because I'm going to crack them. I don't know whether it makes any difference or not to Val's kind of recipe, but I don't really want to crack them straight into the pan, and I want to check them first. So I'm just going to dry them off a bit so we don't get too much of the limey mixture included. It doesn't hurt you or anything. So I've got my mixer, my processor top here, which I'm going to put on the scales and get the top off. Zero the scales and put the unit on there. I mean, I could do it all into a bowl and then put it in, but it just seems sort of more sensible to do it straight in. So 0 them, and then I'm going to crack the eggs in. It's a bit runny, I have to say. Smells okay. So I'm going to put that in. I gave it a bit of a whack, so it probably broke the yolk. The one I did in the class and fried was fine. Be a bit more gentle. That's 2. The white does go a bit runny with this method, of preserving. But for scrambled eggs and things and baking and things like that, it's absolutely fine, and they smell completely eggy and not off in any way. So this is egg number 4. Got to keep count. That one goes in. I'll use my spoon rather than put my fingers in the mix. If you want to do this at any time, if you've got extra eggs or you've got chickens and you sometimes have too many eggs in the spring and the summer, the method for this, the instructions for this are in the Eggs Are Incredible workshop, which is free to view. So you can go on Rosie's Preserving School, go into the library, and the recipe is there, or the method, and you can watch the whole video. Right, So that's 6 eggs, and they weigh 339 grams, so 340 all but a gram. Wipe that up. Just going to rinse my hands. So I can push those over there out of the way. God, it is heavy. So now I want 339 grams of sugar. I've got caster sugar because it is a sponge, so I want to make it sort of as light as possible. So 340, that can go straight in. I just do the all-in-one method because I'm usually in a tearing hurry. Now I'm flavouring my cake today, and I'm going to make it orange flavoured. You might sort of think, oh, how are you going to do that? But I'm doing that as part of this experiment as well. So normally I would either do a plain sponge with some vanilla essence in it, which you can do, or you could leave out some of the flour and put some chocolate powder in, that kind of thing. It's a very easy recipe to make whatever you want. So that's 340 or 339, 340. Put that back. Oh, that doesn't live there, it lives over by the coffee. Get it out of the way, that's the main thing. I'm going to put about a teaspoonful of salt in. That's that. I've got my flour, which is also 340, you won't be surprised to know. So zero that again. Start again. This is self-raising flour, and I'm not putting extra, you know, baking powder or anything. I've already oiled and floured my silicone cake tin because it takes a bit of time. So, and that I've tried doing it without. I mean, in theory it should just pop out of a silicone mold, but it doesn't do it that effectively, so it's always a bit caught, which is a shame. So I've given up and I've oiled and floured it. So that's all the sort of, oh no it isn't, I've got the butter to go in. So I use butter in everything, I don't use margarine or buy margarine. So I'm going to put 340 grams of butter. I've softened this, but it's not uniform. Ooh. Couldn't weigh it out before because I didn't know how much the eggs would weigh, so you can see this is the real deal. The rest will just go in the butter dish for later. Gosh, that's a mammoth pan full. Right, here we go. That's it. Now the last thing I'm going to put in to make it orangey, every day, and I'm a bit boring, a bit tedious with this, I have 2 of these easy peel satsumas. I take them to work and I have them with anything else I might be eating for lunch. That's a bit of a rare occurrence. So they're a nice fill-in between breakfast and when we get back in the afternoon. We have a banana and I have 2 oranges, and when the peel comes off, if I need some, I keep it and I dehydrate it and powder it. You can just air dry it and then powder it, you know, but it's quicker if you've got a dehydrator. And then I keep the powder, which is all settled, there we go, in a jar, and you can use it for all sorts of flavouring. You know, you can put it in your chutneys and things if you need an orange hit, or you can use it in cooking. And I'm going to use it in my cake, and then I'm going to use it in my icing as well. So let's put some of that in. I'll put a couple of tablespoonfuls in there. Okay, now the next bit's really quite noisy, so I'm going to do that, and then we'll come back and I'll put it into the tin and we'll put it in the oven. Okay. Okay, that's that done. Take off the top, not too much to recover from the machinery. So what I'm going to do is spoon it in to start with before I spatula the rest. It's a lovely light mix. You can see a nice sponge cake texture. Get my tools out of the way. No. Gosh. I'll just make sure there's some right in the base of this cake form, because I don't want, you know, big holes in the top, so I've gone around like that. Now I'll take the blades out and do it without them slipping. Oh, they always get stuck on the centre bit because there's a, oh, there we go, it forms a vacuum. I'll get the rest of that off. I only make a ham-fisted job of doing this so that you feel better, that you feel you can cope better than I can. Oh dear, I expect Mary Berry has an assistant to do it. Get it all in the tin. I do hate though half of the mix being left in the mixer. Okay, that's as good as I can do, I think. Right, get the spatula and get the rest out. And kind of sort of try and evenly fill your tins. If you're just doing a 2-layer sponge and you've got separate tins, you've got 2 tins, just pop them on the scale so that you get the mix evenly. Otherwise you tend to end up with one really fat one and one thin one, and hope nobody notices when they're eating it. But it doesn't have to be exact, but just sort of even it up as much as possible. And we'll go around with the spatula. Get my knife, scrape that off. And a spoon. If I wasn't filming this, I'd get the very last little bits off, but you don't want to watch that particularly. Okay, like that. Just go around with the knife and sort of even it up. And then it can go in the oven. I'm going to put it in at 180 fan which is I think about 5 on gas, but you'll know your oven and what works well for whatever you're cooking. So once it's out of the oven and cooled down, we'll come back and I'll just do the icing to go on the top, and then we're good to go for the next week. We do make it last a week, but if it's got a bit dry we end up eating it with custard or something. So okay, I'll see you in a bit. Okay, welcome back. The cake is out. It's a disaster. It broke in two. I'm going to stick it back with the icing. I'll show you how I make the icing, and then we'll just eat it as is. It's quite a it's a lovely sponge, but I tried to take it out too quickly, and there's been all sorts of other disasters in the interim, which perhaps one day I'll tell you about. But right now, let's get this done. Now I've sieved some icing sugar into this bowl, and you always need more icing sugar than you think, because when you put the liquid in with it, it goes right down. So I'm going to use a fresh orange, and I'm going to put some zest into the icing sugar as well, some fresh zest, if I can get the end off my grater. I don't want masses, but just enough to give it a flavour. It's a fine grater, so it won't be unpleasant to eat. The cake tastes lovely anyway. The bits I ate as they fell off. Never mind. So all that greasing and flouring didn't do any good at all. Right. Give that a bash to get the most of the... Now I've got the cake on my cutting mat, so I'm just going to get another one to cut this orange in half, so that I can squeeze the juice, and I'm going to use the juice to make the icing so it's nice and orangey flavoured, but not an artificial orange. I'm not flavour. I'm not a fan of orange flower water and things like that, although you could use that if you've got it and you like it. Right. Okay, so it's quite a lot of juice. And just today I want it thick enough to stick the cake back together. Oh dear. Right, let's try this. I'll put a bit in and then mix the icing sugar, and I can always add some more if I need to. It's made it go a lovely orangey colour, as you would expect. I always remember the very first time I made icing like this. I was about 4 or 5. I was helping my mother with the Christmas cakes, and I didn't know about not adding too much liquid, and I just poured the whole lot in, and she only had a certain amount because she'd got it for the Christmas cakes, and she was really quite cross because I'd just poured it in without asking, and she just ended up with something that looked like milk. I can't remember what the resolution was. Probably me being sent to my room. There was a lot of that. Right, just put a touch more in just to slacken it. And then I'm just going to spoon it around the top of the cake and let it drip down. Now if I'd done this when my children were at home, they'd be stood either side of me when they were little, and little fingers going underneath to see if they could get the drips out and eat them. So imagine this is a beautiful cake and it's all in one piece. I think we've all been there though. And then just pour it on so that it doesn't, the weight of it will pull it down, but if you put too much on in one go, it will just all slide off. So you've got to sort of be a little bit patient putting it on. I couldn't tell you how much sugar I had. It all depends on the size of your cake and how much icing you like, really. This size that I made with the 6 eggs took about 45 minutes to cook. So a normal sponge size would take about 25 to 35 minutes. In my oven anyway. Right, just put this last bit on, and this cavernous piece here. And it's quite a plain cake. I mean, it's not rich and chocolatey or anything, so it would be very nice to I've been reading a lot about Italian baking and things, and a cake like this would be called a breakfast cake, and you would have cake for breakfast. It seems a bit extreme for us Brits, but they think nothing of a piece of sort of plainish cake like this. Last thing I'm going to do is mix a little bit of the powder that I've got, my orange powder, only a teaspoonful. And I've got some pearl sugar, which is the sort of sugar you get on top of some sort of sweet buns and things like that in the bakers. There's sort of little lumps of sugar like that. I think it's only icing sugar. So I'm going to put the sugar in and mix it, and then just put that over the top like sprinkles, but natural ones, not and a bit there. Right, there we are. Doesn't look too bad for a cake that's half and half. I will we'll probably have some with a cup of tea later once the icing is dried, and I'll put a photograph on of the crummy plate when we finished. Okay, but I hope you'll be able to find that useful, and also using the water glassed eggs, which seems to be uppermost in most people's minds at the moment on some of the forums and so on. So, okay, thank you for watching.